G'day, in this video we'll be going over the best race, birth sign and class attributes for your given playstyle. Generally how I like to do things here is give you all the information you need and the basics up front, then we dive a lot deeper further into the video later on. So with that, let me just say that none of this really matters or makes a big difference, especially further into your playthrough. You're best off picking whatever race you like the look of or you prefer, as you're going to be staring at this thing for hundreds if not thousands of hours. All skills and attributes can be leveled up reasonably quick and all count towards your leveling progress. So picking all the birth signs and attributes is more just how to start off with your best foot forward, as everything can be changed further on through your playthrough. If you do decide that you want to change your playstyle, you can do that at any point throughout the game without having to restart picking a new race, new birth signs and new attributes. So play whatever you want and however you want, as this game does allow you to do so. So with that, when it comes to basics of picking your race, if you're going for a stealthy assassin-like character, generally your best choices are Argonian and Khajiit, leaning more towards Khajiit for this one. If you're after the best all-round race is generally considered to be the Dark Elf, as this can kind of lean towards all playstyles and it has a good all-round base for its attributes. If you're going for a mage type character, the best two choices would generally be the Breton as a more defensive type mage and the High Elf as a more offensive type mage. And if you plan on playing a warrior, the best choice in my opinion is the Red Guard. However, you can also pick Orcs, the Nord, or even the Imperial. But if you're going like a Paladin type player where you're using magic and melee, your best picks here would be Imperial or the Nords. And when it comes to you being an archer, your best choice would generally be the Wood Elf, as they start with the highest marksman and they lean themselves more towards that archery build. But you can also go with the Dark Elf here as well. One other thing with the race is they used to have attributes specific to the body type. However, they have changed that for the remaster. So when you're picking your race, if you come down to the origin, this will then change the attributes depending on the origin you pick, essentially. So if you do want to get them little bonuses, as you can see with the Argonian, changing the origin changes your agility and speed for intellect here and changes your willpower as well. So just make sure, depending on what playstyle you plan on doing, you do double check the origin and click whichever one lines up best with the attributes that you would prefer for your playthrough. When it comes to the birth signs, the best warrior one is obviously the warrior. It provides a 10 boost to your endurance and your strength. Or you've got the Lord, which increases your armor rating by 15 and your magic resistance by 15, which is a great choice pretty much for any type of playthrough that you're going to be doing. So the Lord is always a great choice. If you're going for a thief assassin type build, the thief is obviously a great choice here. You can also go shadow to get an invisibility for 60 seconds, but this can only be used once a day. However, with the thief you get a plus 10 to your agility, luck and your speed, which in my opinion, adding a plus 10 to your luck is a massive bonus to the start of the game, as you can only level luck up once every level and it takes 4 of your attributes to level this up by once. So it would take 10 levels to get the equivalent of this bonus to be able to get a bonus 10 luck. So this is a great choice, not only for thief, archers, and for anyone that kind of wants to lean towards that luck skill. It is a great way to start the game. If you plan on being a stealth archer, the best choice is obviously the thief. However, you can also go with the Lord, as this is a great choice as well. And when it comes to a mage type playthrough, there's 3 that are generally a good choice. So you can go with the mage to increase your magicka by 50. You can also go with the apprentice, which increases your magicka by 100, allowing you to class bigger, stronger spells, but it does give you a weakness to magic by 100%, which can be countered in game with weapon enchants and spells. And the final choice is the Atronach, which is for more advanced mages, as this one does increase your magicka by 150 points and it gives you 50% chance to absorb all spells cast to them. But this does stunt your magicka regeneration, meaning you will not regenerate magicka, meaning you then will want to work on your alchemy and be using potions to restore your magicka, which is a lot quicker, and I generally recommend this for more advanced mages. Now when it comes to picking your class, there are a lot of good options here and you can press bumpers to go through the magic or the stealth type, but I highly recommend always creating your own, as you can kind of pick everything that you think you will use a lot more, as it does add a 5 level bonus to everything you click in the major skills. So the first thing you're going to do is obviously pick what you're going to be running with. So you can go combat, magic or stealth. You then move over to the next pass. So if you're going to be going with a warrior type build, you're going to be wanting gaining either strength, as this increases your damage for longswords, claymores, maces, war axes, battle axes, warhammers, and your bare hands. It also increases how much you carry and your maximum health. Willpower is another great choice, as this greatly increases your maximum fatigue, which is what you use when you're swinging your weapons. Agility is another good one, as this increases your max fatigue slightly, but it also defines how quickly you regenerate your fatigue. And you've got endurance, which increases your maximum health and defines how quickly you regenerate health. So this is a big one pretty much for every single playstyle, as this defines how much health you actually have and how much it regenerates out of combat. If you're going with a mage build, obviously you're going to be wanting to head towards the intelligence and willpower, as this intelligence determines your maximum magicka, which defines how strong a spell you can cast, and your willpower, which determines how quickly you regenerate your magicka. If you're going for more of a stealth build, you obviously want to go down the path of agility and speed, as agility increases the damage of your daggers, short swords, and bows. So this is a great one for archery. And then speed just determines how fast you move around the map, but this does come in handy later on in the game when you're moving around in bigger dungeons and such. Moving on from there, you have to pick your major skills. So generally you just want to pick whatever things you want, as picking your major skills will put a plus 20 to each major skill you decide on. If I was going a warrior, I'd generally get armor or athletics, either blade or blunt. Always take block and heavy armor or light armor, depending which armor you want to take. And then the last two options are generally up to you. I normally go with acrobatics just because I don't sit there and spam it. I think it's a good choice to get, as I find it levels up pretty slowly unless you're just spamming it everywhere you go. And then I also choose restoration, as this can save your life and help you unless you just want to spam potions. If you're going with a mage, obviously you just pick whatever magics you plan on using, and then you can branch into your armor type. So light or heavy armor, depending on what you want to take. You can take speechcraft, and then you've also got athletics or armor if you plan on repairing whatever you got your gear if you do take damage. As for a stealth assassin kind of build, you're going to want to take athletics. You want to pick the armor type you're going to use, and then you can go down the path of picking illusion, as this does have a lot of spells to keep you concealed, and mysticism, as you can move objects and reveal sense life, which can be very helpful when you're being a thief or an assassin type build. And then you want to pick obviously security and sneak. As for archer, the same thing applies. You want to get your marksman. I'd probably go with athletics. You want to pick the armor type you're going to use. You can build into an illusion kind of build. You want to go with a stealth archer, but you can enchant your gear with chameleon or something, so you don't have to worry about that later on. And then you just pick anything you prefer later on anyway. One thing to know when you're creating your class and you're making your way through the tutorial through the sewers is when you come to the final gate here, you can go through and change everything, including your identity, your birth sign, your race, and your class, and you can change it all right before you leave the sewers. So you don't have to worry too much through the tutorial. You can try different things to see if you're going to like it or enjoy it. A lot of people do make a quick save right before they leave the sewers, so they can go play their class for a couple hours, see if they enjoy it, and if they don't, they come back, they load the save. Or if you just don't want to start through the whole tutorial again and go through the sewers, I highly recommend making a manual save before you get to the final gate, and then you can go through and edit all your class signs and come back here if you have a change of mind and you want to change what you've picked. That's the nuts and guts of it. If that's all you came here for, please feel free to shut the video down. You can navigate to any more detailed part of this video with the chapters put down below. And if you're on your way out, please feel free to like, comment, or subscribe, as this will help me out greatly. Right, when it comes to your choice with race, it determines your character's initial attributes and provides bonuses to various skills. These values will also differ depending on your origin trait, and we'll go through that in a second. All races and origins all have a total of 320 base attributes, and each race have their own special abilities, weaknesses, and strengths that will run through. All races also have a slight reaction to different races, so when talking to other races, but I wouldn't worry too much about this. It's just a -5 to their disposition, so it shouldn't make that big of a difference at all, and I wouldn't take that into consideration when choosing your race. Right, diving deeper into the races, we'll start with the Argonians. The Argonians make very good thieves and assassins, as they start with a +10 to their athletics and security security, and they also have a +5 to their alchemy, blade, hand-to-hand, illusion, and mysticism. What it doesn't show you in this race picking screen is every single race has its own traits. As for the Argonians, they start with a 75% resistance to disease, 100% resistance to poison, and they also have water breathing, so you don't have to worry about running out of air and dying underwater. And when it comes to their origin traits, the biggest difference here is the Amnesia. You have a -10 to your willpower, but a +10 to agility and speed. However, when you swap over to the Thornmarsh, you gain a +10 to intelligence, so this can make a difference depending on your playstyle. Moving on to the Breton, which is a great defensive mage. The Breton are particularly skilled in mysticism, restoration, and conjuration, as they start with a +10 to all of them stats. They also start with a +5 to alchemy, alteration, and illusion. Another reason that the Bretons make a great mage is they start with a +50 to their magicka as one of their traits. They also have a 50% resistance to all magic, and they have a spell called Dragon Skin, which you can use once a day, which is a 50% shield for 60 seconds on self. As for their origin trait, the main difference here is when you're on Sistrus, you've got a +10 to strength. However, when you swap over to High Rock, it takes that strength and puts it onto your speed. If you prefer the speed, or if you prefer the strength for that extra carry load, health, and being able to do some kind of melee when you're playing. Moving over to the Dark Elf, generally considered the most well-balanced character. They can move into any of the 3 main archetypes with ease pretty much. They do start with a +10 to their blade and destruction, so they can make good spellcasters while still being melee, and they've got a +5 to athletics, blunt, light armor, marksman, and mysticism. The Dark Elves traits are they have a spell called Ancestral Guardian, which they can summon the Ancestral Guardian for 60 seconds on self once per day, which is a pretty good spell. They also have a resistance of 75% to fire damage, which is one of the main elemental damages in this game, and you will find it with every single Oblivion Gate. So this can be a massive difference when taking down those Oblivion Gates. As for their origin trait, the main difference here is a swap between their endurance and their personality. So if you prefer more endurance for that carry load and that health, I'd go with the Vardenfell. Otherwise, you can go with the mainland for that higher personality. Heading over to the High Elf, which is considered one of the best races for a pure mage build. They do start with a +10 to alteration, destruction, and mysticism, and a +5 to alchemy, conjuration, and illusion. One of the reasons these are considered one of the best pure mage builds as they start with a +100 to their magicka. They also have a 75% resistance to disease, but they do have a weakness to all the elements being fire, frost, and shock by 25%. Moving on to our origin traits, this does swap our speed and endurance again on this one. So if you prefer a higher endurance, I'd go with the Orderon. If you prefer the higher speed, you can go with the Somerset Isles. Moving on to the Imperial, these are great warriors or a paladin player. They are also very good at haggling and negotiating, as they do have a high personality. Imperials start with a +10 to their mercantile, speechcraft, and their heavy armor, and a +5 to their blade, blunt, and hand-to-hand. And their 2 traits are both spells, being Star of the West, which absorbs 100 points of fatigue on touch. You can use that once a day. And they also have Voice of the Emperor, which can charm for 30 points for 30 seconds on target once per day as well. As for the origin traits for the Imperials, it swaps your willpower with your speed. So I generally go with the Colovia, as willpower is very important when it comes to being a warrior or any kind of build in this game. But if you prefer the speed, you can go with a Nibelunge. Moving over to the Khajiit, they're generally considered the best choice if you want to go with a rogue type assassin or a thief in this game. They have a +10 to their acrobatics, hand-to-hand, and a +5 to their athletics, blade, light armor, security, and sneak. As for their traits, they have the Eye of Fear, which is a demoralize up to level 25 for 100 points for 30 seconds on a target. You can use this once per day. Or they have the Eye of Night, which is basically Night Eye on self for 30 seconds. This can be toggled on and off and costs no magicka. As for their origin trait, the only thing that swaps is their strength, their endurance. So depending if you want more strength or more endurance is what one you would pick here. Generally, if you're going to be a thief or an assassin, endurance is a better choice here. So I'd probably go with the Palatine, but if you prefer that extra strength, you can go the Anaquiana. Heading over to the Nords, these are a great choice for a warrior type build. They've got a +10 to their blade, blunt, heavy armor, and a +5 to their armor, block, and restoration. The Nords traits are a spell called Nordic Frost, which gives them a frost damage 50 points on touch once per day. We've also got a spell called Woad, which gives them a 30% shield for 60 seconds once per day. And they've got an immunity to frost, giving them 50% resistance to all frost damage, which is just a constant. As for their origin trait, the two things that swap around are their willpower and endurance. So if you prefer the willpower, I'd go with the Eastern. If you want an extra endurance, you can go with the Western side. Moving on to the Orcs, which are a great choice if you want to play a warrior type playthrough. They have a +10 to their armor, block, blunt, and heavy armor, and a +5 to their hand-to-hand. As for their traits, they have a +25% to their magic resist, and they also have a spell called Berserker, which can be used once a day and lasts 60 seconds, which fortifies your fatigue by 200 points. It fortifies your health by 20 points, fortifies strength by 50 points, but drains your agility by 100. As for the origin trait, on Stronghold, you have a bonus to your willpower and a +5 to your personality. However, if you swap over to Orsinium, you get that bonus to your intelligence, and it takes 5 from willpower and personality. So generally, if you're going with a warrior type build, willpower is the better choice, so you probably prefer having that +5 in the willpower, but as always, personal preference. Moving on to the Red Guards, which make excellent warriors and is always my personal choice. The Red Guards start with a +10 to blade, blunt, and athletics, and a +5 to light armor, heavy armor, and mercantile. They also have what I think is one of the best traits in the game when it comes to being a warrior. It can only be used once per day, but for 60 seconds you get Adrenaline Rush, which fortifies your agility, endurance, speed, and strength by 50 points and gives you a bonus 25 health. Red Guards also have a 75% resistant to disease and poison, which is a constant effect. As for their origin trait, you've got Dragontail Mountain, which puts a +10 to your strength but takes it away from your personality, or you can go the Alakir Desert, which takes that +10 strength and puts it back into your personality. Moving on to the final race, being the Wood Elf. These are a great choice for an archer type build. They can also be assassins or thief, but as for their skills, they have a +10 to their alchemy, marksman, and sneak, and a +5 to their acrobatics, alteration, and their light armor. As for their traits, they have a spell called Beast Tongue, which allows them to command creatures up to level 5 for 60 seconds, and they have a 75% resistance to disease. As for their origin trait, the Grant Wood gives them a higher endurance, whereas the Reaper March takes that +10 endurance and puts it into your personality. So depending if you want the endurance or the personality is what origin trait you would pick here. Before we dive deeper into the birth signs, I thought I'd show you the leveling up system so we have a better understanding what makes a good birth sign and what makes one not so good. So basically, once you hit the point where you can level up, you go to sleep, it'll give you this screen, which you can then add 12, you get 12 virtues, which is basically 12 points to be able to put in 3 separate attributes. Once you've put it into 3 attributes, you can't go further down or change this. You then need to make it a 0 to be able to go into a different option here, but you have to split your 12 virtues into 3 different, and you can put this however you want. You want to have one higher than the other, or you want to max out 5 and 5. As you can see, the limit per attribute is 5, and these all just take 1 virtue to level up once. However, luck is different. Luck takes 4 virtues to level up by 1, and you can only increase this by 1. So when you spread this apart, you'll be able to go 1, and then you've got 5 and 3, or 4 and 4. But without luck, you can see you can go 4 and 4, or do a 2 and a 5 and a 5. And you can split this in any attribute however you want. So if you are playing a certain play style where you're a strength build, a warrior, and you're running in strength and endurance, and you've got them up pretty high, and then you change your mind and you want to swap over to a mage type build or an archer build, you can just start leveling up that type and it will be completely fine and won't affect your gameplay whatsoever. Alright, moving over to the deeper dive into our birth signs. Generally, I consider any attribute boosting birth sign not to be the best choice, as you can see, the warrior is a great choice for a warrior type build, as it gives you a plus 10 points to your strength and endurance. This doesn't mean that your strength and endurance can go beyond the maximum of 100, as every attribute maxes out at 100 points. So giving you that extra 10 points in strength and endurance only means that it will reach the cap of 100 a bit quicker than it would otherwise. So however, this is a very good way to start the game off, and it will give you a boost to your damage, endurance and health early on in the game, especially if you want to leave the sewers and head straight into the arena as a warrior. This is a great choice. However, further into the game, any attribute boosting skill pretty much doesn't mean anything, with the one caveat of the thief, giving that it gives you plus 10 points to your luck. So as I showed you before, in order to get that plus 10 points to luck, you can only put 1 point in luck every level, meaning if you have a luck of 50, you will then need to get to level 50 in order for that to be maxed out and at level 100. So having the thief a point into luck every single time you level up, you'll only need to get to level 40 to reach the maximum luck of 100. And considering that luck takes 4 of your points in order to level up once, so if you are playing any kind of stealth, assassin, archer, this is a great choice. Or if you do kind of want to go down that way of luck and boost your luck as fast as possible, this is a great choice as well. However, when it comes to actual best birth signs, I consider the Lord to be the best choice right now for any kind of warrior build, as it gives you that increase to your armor rating by 15 and a magic resistance of 15, which can make a difference regardless of where you are in your playthrough. Whether you've maxed out your skills and attributes, you will still get that bonus, and it doesn't ease off later on down the line. We did cover this earlier in the video, but I'll quickly cover it now for anyone that skipped ahead. So if you are going with a mage type build, the best choices are the mage, the apprentice and the astronaut, depending on what you want to give up and receive. So the mage fortifies your magicka by 50 points, meaning you have an extra 50 points of magicka to be able to cast bigger or more spells. The apprentice increases your magicka by 100 points, but you then do receive a weakness to magic by 100%. So when you're versing any casters, you will take 100% more damage, but you can counter-react that with enchanting your gear or spells that counter-react that to give you a further resistance to magic. Or if you chose a class like Nord, you will then counter-react. If you're an advanced mage and you've played this game before, you can go with the Atronach. It is considered one of the best for skilled mages, as you get an extra 150 points to your magicka, which if you pick this and the high elf will be the maximum amount of magicka you can get as a player, period. And it does give you a 50% chance to absorb spells cast on you. However, this does stunt your magicka, meaning you do not regenerate magicka at all, and you will need to use potions in order to keep your magicka up, which if you're a mage isn't really a bad idea. You can work on your alchemy, build up those potions to increase how much magicka you get, and it is a great way to be able to cast those massive high damage spells. But if you're just new to this game or you're not 100%, I'd either stick with the apprentice or the mage if you don't want to risk taking that extra damage from mage. So generally stuff like the steed, I wouldn't really put points into. It can help you zip around early on, but later on it will mean absolutely nothing, especially once you start putting points into speed. You can get plus 20 into your speed with 4 levels if you want to put that into it, so it's not really worth it. Then as for things like the shadow or any kind of spell related birth sign, they are good early on, especially if you don't have any spells to make you invisible, as this can help you early on if you want to dive straight into the Thieves Guild or the Dark Brotherhood, as you get an invisibility for 60 seconds and it will allow you to sneak past certain areas and get through things. But as you start leveling up, especially if you move into the illusion, you can get spells that grant you invisibility, so it kind of eases off, as you can only use this spell once every day. You'll need to sit there and wait for 24 hours to be able to use it again. Moving down to other ones like the tower, you've got open locks of average difficulty. Once you figure out how to pick locks, this isn't really a big deal. There are exploits to be able to level up your lock picking very quickly, and I've got a video above if you want to watch that. as well as a guide on how to be better at lockpicking and ways to do it easily. But I wouldn't really pick the tower, as picking locks is very easy, and once you get beyond the average difficulty lock, it's kind of redundant, and if you're breaking into a house or anything, you can only use this once, so I don't think it's really worth it. And the other skill you can use once per day is reflecting 5% of all incoming damage for 2 minutes, which isn't that great either. Another choice that I'd steer clear of is the lover. It just paralyzes a target for 10 seconds, but it reduces the caster's fatigue by 120 points, and it can only be used once per day. So this can come in handy. However, you can get a paralysis spell early on. You can make early on paralysis spells, and even if it's just for 1 second, you can use that spell, paralyze them. They then become paralyzed for a second, drop to the ground, and then have to get back up, and you can just use the spell again, so you can be wailing on them the entire time. You don't really need a single use spell to paralyze someone for 10 seconds as your birth sign, as there are better choices. The lady is another one that can be good early on, especially if you want that willpower and endurance to increase your fatigue, parry power, and your health. So if you want this early on, it is a decent choice, but later on the game, it won't really make that much of a difference. As for the ritual, this isn't the worst choice, but there are a lot of things that you can do to get the kind of same thing. This can be used, especially if you're getting overrun or overwhelmed by multiple things. You can use this to force undead to flee in horror for 30 seconds, but it only works on undead, obviously, as it can be used multiple times per day and at a cost of 40 magicka. But the biggest thing here is Mara's Gift, which is one of the biggest heals in the game, as it restores 200 health, but it can only be used once per day. So it is kind of a lay on hands like a paladin in most games, and if you want to go down that kind of build craft, you can choose this, but you can build into restoration and get healing spells or potions that will almost give you the same effect as that. But if you do want that instant big heal, this is a good choice. And finally, we have the Serpent, which gives you a spell that deals 3 points of damage for 20 seconds. It also cures poison, dispels 90 points of damage, and fatigue points to the caster. So it's not a terrible one, but you can only use this once per day. But all it really does is poison a target for 60 damage, so not the best thing in the world. So when it comes to your birth sign, I'd highly recommend, if you're going with a warrior type playthrough and you're looking further into your playthrough to gain those benefits, the Lord is a great choice. Or if you're going with a mage type build, I'd go with either the Atronach, the Apprentice, or the Mage. Or if you're going with a stealth type build and you want to build into the luck, you can always go with the Thief. So moving on to the edit class, what I recommended earlier is coming down and clicking make your custom class. When it comes to picking your specialization, being combat, magic, or stealth, the specialization you pick, all 7 skills related to that specialization will receive a +5 bonus, and they increase levels more rapidly. So the choice you pick can make a difference. However, the difference isn't too much that you can't then change your skills and change how you want to level. So pick whatever you prefer, but don't think it will cripple you into changing later on. Now moving on to the attributes. So when it comes to strength, it's a great choice for warriors, as it affects the amount of damage you deal with longswords, claymores, maces, war axes, battle axes, warhammers, and your bare hands, and defines how much you can carry and slightly increases your maximum health. So when it comes to the carry, each point that you put into strength increases your carry weight by +5. And as for the damage, it increases the damage you deal with most melee weapons to a bonus of 0.5% per point in strength, capping out at a +50% damage. As for your health, it equals 2/3 of your total strength. As for intelligence, it's a staple for any kind of magic build. It determines your maximum magicka, allowing you to cast more powerful spells, obviously. Your magicka equals to 2 times of your intelligence, so if you have an intelligence level of 50, you will then have a magicka of 100. As for willpower, this determines how quickly you regenerate magicka and greatly increases your maximum fatigue. So your fatigue is equal to 2.7 times your willpower. This is your magicka all the way to 0. You will then have a completely stunted magicka, and you will not regenerate magicka at all. Your agility affects the amount of damage you deal with daggers, short sword, and bows, and slightly increases your maximum fatigue and defines how quickly you regenerate your magicka. If you have 100 agility, you will then have 133 fatigue total. And just as strength increased your larger weapons at a 0.5%, that is the same as agility, increasing your daggers, short sword, and bows at a 0.5%, capping out at 50% as well. Now moving over to your speed, this pretty much just determines the speed at which you move around the map. It also reduces the time it takes when you're fast traveling. So if you're fast traveling to a certain spot, it will then take 3 hours instead of 4 in game time, but you won't notice this. It's more useful when moving around in smaller dungeons or getting around the map before you get a horse, or if you prefer just running around. So with your endurance, this greatly increases your maximum health and defines how quickly you regenerate health out of combat. So when you're in combat, you get no bonus to regenerating your health. And when it comes to your maximum health, they use your endurance and your strength, but as for your endurance, your health is equal to 10% of your endurance multiplied by your level minus 1, adding on your strength percentage as well. But there's also another equation in here that they have for health, which is equal to 4/3 times your endurance. So if you've got an endurance of 100, then have a health of 133. This is in combination with your strength. And for all us mere mortals, none of this makes any sense. But just know increasing your endurance increases your health by a fair bit. And the higher your endurance, the quicker you regenerate health. The base regeneration is 7.5 plus 1/3 of your endurance. But as I said before, this doesn't count when you're in combat. Only 6 seconds after you leave combat does this take in effect and you start regenerating that bonus to your health regen. As for personality, this affects how much people like you, leading to better information gathering and better trade deals, meaning when you go to barter with someone or talk with someone, they start at a higher disposition than they would. And if you have an almost maxed out personality and a very high fame, this can stop people attacking you on sight like bandits. But as I said, you will need a very high personality and a very high fame rate to prevent people like bandits attacking you on sight. Personality is kind of a skill that I wouldn't really worry about at all, as doing quests for people, or you can bribe them, or doing the mini game where you increase their disposition and pretty much completely bypass this personality issue. It's only something like if you want to max out your personality later on at the end of the game, once you've got everything else maxed, that it's really worth it. But I generally leave this to one of the last things that you want to put points into. As for luck, this is one of the more all over the place skills, as it affects all your skills and has an effect on everything you do. But the way they calculate luck starts at 50 for every single race and origin. As I said earlier, it only increases by 1 point per level and costs 4 of the 12 virtues to put a point into it. And I generally wouldn't really put points in luck unless you're really into this thing, because the attributes and the skills that it gives you once you've hit around level 25, it's very negligible, and it will not take your skills over the maximum that they can be. Luck increases all of your skills by 2/5 of your luck points above 50. So for example, if you have a luck level of 65, being it's 15 above 50, so it'll be 15 times by 2/5 equals +6 to all of your skills. However, if you lower your luck, it reduces all of your skills by that same equation. One to remember when improving your luck, if you get the bonus to your luck, so once you have a total of 100 luck, that will then give you a +20 into all of your skills, being blade, blunt, block, destruction, alchemy. Absolutely every single one of your skills will have a +20. These points cannot be pushed further above than 100. So if you already have 100 in blade, it will not go above 100 with that +20. However, if you have 90, it will get it to that 100, but it will not go beyond that. And this will not give you the added skills of the journeyman, expert, or master if you go beyond them. So say you're at a skill of 70 with acrobatics, and you've got 100 luck, having that +20 and getting that luck up to 90 will not give you water walking and water jumping, as it doesn't apply any of them skills, even though it is beyond that. And you will not see any of these changes or any of these bonuses in your character screen. This is all behind the scenes, and you will not see the luck actually adding to anything. Luck also reduces your chance of breaking your lockpicks and your repair hammers, but it's not by much, and it's not really worth putting into luck just to improve these bonuses. Luck, however, does increase the health of the character that you bet on in the arena. So if you do like gambling and sitting at the arena, having a high luck can improve your odds of winning the arena. And of course, if you do want to increase your luck from the start, your best choice is to pick the Thief Birthsign, as this will instantly give you a +10 to your luck, meaning that you only need to get 40 more levels to max out your luck and take the biggest bonus to luck early on in the game. When it comes to the skills page, so you'll be picking 7 major skills that will then get a bonus 20 levels and will increase a lot more rapidly than all your other skills. So you want to choose these wisely depending on what kind of playthrough you're going to be doing. We'll jump out of this screen and jump into the character menu to see what all of these skills actually do. So if we start with armorer obviously affects your ability to maintain and repair your weapon. And as you can see, all of your skills have level bonuses when you get them to level 25, 50, 75, and 100, being apprentice, journeyman, expert, and master. So armor is something that you probably want to take on most classes, as you're always going to be repairing gear. And once you get armor up to level expert, you can repair armor beyond their maximum durability, improving the damage they deal and improving the amount of armor protection they provide. If you're going to be picking a melee, you obviously want to pick the type of melee weapon you're going to be using. So either blade, blunt, hand to hand. You always generally want to take block, as this is detrimental to being a melee character. And you want to pick the type of armor you're going to be taking, either heavy or light armor, depending on what you prefer. Late game, heavy and armor have about the same rating and provide the same protection. So it's completely up to you what you prefer and what you prefer the look of, if you prefer the look of light armor or heavy armor. As later on, as you can see from the leveling this up, heavy armor will then not encumber you at all. But if we go over to light armor on master, when wearing light armor, exclusive light armor, your protection is greatly increased. So that increases the protection that you have. So they end up pretty much the same. But generally, this is just something that you pick whatever you prefer the look of. Blading covers any type of claymores, swords, short swords, or daggers. And as for blunt, it's hammers, maces, and axes. Hand to hand is pretty simple. It's obviously just using your hands. Acrobatics is a good choice to have, especially as a melee, as once you hit apprentice, you then learn a dodge. Alchemy is your ability to create potions and be able to turn ingredients that you find around the world and turn them into potions. So this is good for any kind of mage build, or if someone's into it, they can do this as a melee to be able to top up your health, top up your fatigue, and also you can create different potions that will help you out, give you bonuses like feather and other things during the game. Marksman is obviously something you want to take if you're going to be playing an archer build. Starting out with a high marksman can get rid of that fact that you will be taking fatigue as you hold your bow and draw it back, and you then also gain the ability to zoom in once you hit the journeyman. Mercantile is basically anything to do with bartering and selling your goods or buying goods. You will level this up pretty quickly as you start getting more valuable gear. So the more valuable something is when you sell it or buy it, it increases the level of this exponentially. Security is everything to do with lockpicking and just allows you to be able to pick locks a lot easier and slows down the tumbler's movements. Once you get to master lockpick, it is super easy to pick any lock, including very hard locks, as the tumbler moves incredibly slow and is very forgiving when it's sitting at the top. Sneak affects your ability to be seen, obviously, and unheard by observers, and increases your chance of pickpocketing. If you're going for any kind of stealth or assassin build, or going with a stealth archer, this is obviously something that you want to get and level up as quick as possible. Once you hit level 25, it increases your sneak attack damage. So level 50, you make a lot less noise while sneaking around. And once you hit level 75 expert, you are a lot harder to detect in brighter areas. And a lot of things that stealth archers generally want to get, or anyone that's playing a stealth, is once you hit level 100 or master in sneak, your sneak attacks ignore the opponent's armor. So when you're taking down someone with heavy armor, this can make a big difference. As for speechcraft, this is one of the worst skills to level up in the game and the slowest. This takes forever. I actually put this as one of my major skills, thinking it'd be quick to level, but it is by far the slowest thing to level, and I don't think it makes that much of a difference. If you hit level 50, you get a free rotate, which can be a pretty big thing when it comes to persuading someone. It can help you out getting there quicker, but it's not that big a deal, and I wouldn't worry too much about speechcraft. Moving on to athletics, it's obviously how quickly you run, swim, and sprint, and it affects your fatigue when doing all of these things. But as you level up your athletics, you actually reduce the amount of fatigue you take when running, to a point where once you hit master, you then no longer consume fatigue at all. And now we've got all of the magic skills, being alteration affects your ability to cast spells to breathe or walk on water, open locks, reduce incumbentness, and shield yourself from physical and magic damage. Conjuration is your ability to summon creatures, weapon and armor, and turn undead, so you can summon your own creature to fight for you, summon your own swords, Daedric weapons, and Daedric armor to protect yourself. This is a really good choice, especially for any kind of playthrough. If you want to play on a harder difficulty, as conjuring things do not get affected by the difficulty level. However, everything on master will become a sponge for you. When you're conjuring things, it will not be the case, and they will do the same amount of damage to other things that they're fighting. So this can make the difference when doing a harder difficulty playthrough. Destruction is your main spell group for doing damage, elemental damage, and weakening your opponents. So the main one when you're trying to just destroy people. Illusion is your effects to cast spells to charm, conceal, create light, silence, paralyze, command, and affect aggressiveness. Mysticism is your ability to cast spells to absorb magic, reflect damage, dispel, move objects, sense life, and reveal past and bind souls. And restoration is your ability to cast spells to restore, fortify, or absorb attributes, cure disease, and improve resistance, so basically staying alive. When it comes to all of your magic skills, the level here is a level of spell that you can cast. So each spell has its own rating, either apprentice, journeyman, expert, and master, and you need to be the equivalent level to be able to cast that spell level. All right, that pretty much covers absolutely everything there is when it comes to picking your race, birth sign, and your different skills and attributes in your class. If you got something out of this video, make sure you please hit that like button, as it greatly helps out. And if you want to see more guides like this or anything to do with Oblivion, make sure you hit that sub button. I appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.